On today's episode, the president of World OCR, Ian Adamson. Welcome to the OCR Report podcast. The OCR Report is the live stream home for the sport of obstacle course racing. Become a member at patreon.com/the OCR Report and help us ensure OCR is here for the next 100 years. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the OCR Report. My name is Will Hicks. Thank you for listening. This is the OCR Report podcast. We are in the middle of 30 podcasts, half September, 30 podcasts in 30 days, one podcast a day. Today is day 26 of 30. We are in the home stretch of 30 episodes. That's a lot of podcasts, you guys. It's not just the OCR Report. It's also World's Toughest Podcast. It's also Obstacle Running Adventures, OCR Talk. Fran and Carlo get OCR adjacent, Nitty Gritty Training, Strength and Speed, and Travels with Jack Goris. 8 different podcasts over the month of September. Very exciting. This is actually my next to last episode of September. I have another one on the last day of September with the OCR Report. And I want to make sure you listen to that one. I'm going to be talking with Jason Dupree. Jason Dupree is the brains and the man behind all of our race live streams. So we talk about everything live stream. If you have any questions about live streaming, we talk about it. We also talk about how it came to be. Our very first race we ever did together, which was Hildervat in Florida during the middle of COVID. There's COVID in like 49 states except for Florida. We went down there and they just pretended it wasn't going on. Anyway, so after this one, this is a long, interesting conversation, but also be sure to check out on the 30th. I want to say that is Monday. It is Monday, the last day of 30 podcasts, half September. I talked with Jason Dupree to cap off our month of podcasting. Very excited. And there's lots more podcasts to come, lots of live streams to come. OCRWC is next weekend. So be sure to stay tuned. You can find out more about all of that stuff at the OCR Report on Instagram. At the OCR Report on Instagram. That's how you find it. Also, all of our race live streams. If you want to watch obstacle course racing live stream, whether it's Spartan or Tough Mudder, Savage Race, our local race spotlights like Midwest OCR this weekend, go to youtube.com/the OCR Report. Be sure to subscribe there. And if you want to support what we're doing, go to patreon.com/the OCR Report. Also, you can, if you really want to get plugged in, jump in our text groups. We've got a link in our bio. You'll have a deal or some news or just a way to stay in touch with the OCR Report through text messaging. I have thousands of unread emails. I have 0 unread texts. So if you want to get a text from us with hey, here's race results from this weekend, or hey, here's 20% off good pair of shoes, trail running shoes, find that link on our Instagram bio or in the show notes here. Today in our show, Ian Adamson. Ian is the president of World Obstacle. World Obstacle is the international governing body for obstacle course racing. Ian is the man who helped. I'm sure he would give credit to his team, but he's the guy behind getting obstacle course racing to be included in pentathlon as part of the Olympics. And we had a good long show. We haven't talked in a while. We've talked before, but we haven't talked in a minute. So it's good to get caught up. We talked about the Olympics. Obstacle racing, or obstacle as it's called in the Olympic circles, being added to pentathlon is a pretty big deal for us, absolutely, as obstacle racing. But it's a big, and we talk about this, Ian and I talk about this, it's a big deal for pentathlon as well. They're losing a big part of pentathlon, the horse riding part of their sport. there's still 4 other disciplines that are part of pentathlon, but horse racing was absolutely a unique part of it, right? So we talk about that. Like, hey, what do the pentathlon people think about this? Some of them are not on board, and he gets it. He understands it. So it's interesting to hear his thoughts on that. We talked about the FISO World Championships that were in Costa Rica recently. There was some controversy with the women's finish, the top 3 women. We talk about that a bit. And stay tuned toward the end for discussion of 2 sports we have never talked about on the podcast: tag and calisthenics. Before we talk with Ian Adamson, let's read some iTunes reviews.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars.
5 stars. 5 stars.
No new reviews today, but you can go to lovethepodcast.com/OCR to leave a review for the podcast. Click on there's 3, I'll have 3 options there when you go to that website. lovethepodcast.com/OCR. I would be interested to hear your thoughts on today's interview. Leave them. You can 2 ways you can do it. Email me, will@theocrreport.com, or you can leave a review and everyone can read it. And of course, I will read it on a future episode, even if it's terrible, even if it's a terrible review, even if you don't know how to write, if you're misspelling it. If it's a terrible review, I'll still read it. It's time to talk with the president of World Obstacle, Ian Adamson. Let's go to the phones. Ian Adamson is the president of World Obstacle and chair of the Obstacle Working Group for World Pentathlon. Ian Adamson, welcome to the show.
Hello, Will. Good to be here.
Ian, we haven't talked in a minute. A lot has happened in obstacle and obstacle course racing in the last 6 months, a year. Officially added to the agenda for the Olympics 4 years from now. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been a hot minute, that's for sure. And to be clear on the Olympic programming, that is the obstacle discipline in pentathlon replacing equestrian. So there's a lot of noise out there talking about obstacle in the Olympics. Well, we've got to be very clear on what it actually is.
I have my own take on that. I want to get to it in a second, but for if someone's kind of like, maybe let's just pretend someone's like, what, obstacle racing might be in the Olympics or is in the Olympics? Like what? How do we bring people up to speed? Like, this is what that looks like. Here's what it means like as part of pentathlon.
Sure. So pentathlon is a sport and a federation. The name is a bit like triathlon. So pentathlon, the event, has 5 disciplines. So they're called the swimming discipline, the running discipline, etc. So swimming, running, fencing, laser shooting, and now obstacle. So they call it the obstacle discipline. So if people say, yay, obstacle racing is in the Olympics, yes, but there's a caveat because it's not its own thing. It's not a standalone event yet.
Some people, when they hear it's not its own thing. Well, I'm not going to learn how to fence. Like, what does that mean for me? My take on it is, look, we got in. We're in. 3-on-3 basketball is a thing now. I was watching swimming with Katie Ledecky, and they were talking about how she might have even more medals, but they've just added new parts, new swimming races to swimming. And swimming is, obviously one of the top, one of the majors of the Olympics. So my thought is, hey, we're in. Let's get in. We'll expand from there, hopefully.
That is accurate. That's exactly how most individual sports get medal events, which is what we're talking about. You see it in I call them the big 4 sports, but the ones that aggregate lots of sports. Aquatics, which has swimming in it. Athletics, which has lots of stuff, runs, jumps, throws, hurdles, marathon, etc. Aquatics also has diving, high diving, swimming, open water swimming, cycling. Over time, you see lots of stuff gets added to cycling and canoe. Actually, the most get added to canoe. But when you look at those sports, which is what pentathlon is doing, to Katie Ledecky's point, in swimming, they've added open water swimming, marathon swimming, team relays. They keep adding these events, but you have to be in the programming to do that. Pentathlon is an Olympic sport on the Olympic program. So they have the ability, with our assistance, of course, in collaboration, to format additional medal events for the Olympic Games. And that's where you can get something like an obstacle course race or a ninja competition or something like this. And that's, to your point, it's important because you can't do it until you've got your leg and your arm in the door, which we do now. So that's useful.
What I've read is that once you're in, the IOC or the powers that be, whoever it is kind of watching for reaction from the audience. They want the Olympics to stay relevant. They obviously want to honor tradition. From their track and field will always be a part of the Olympics, right? Breakdancing was recently in the Olympics. Maybe it's not. I'm not totally sure, but it's kind of in flux. It's not the same. Nothing's set in stone necessarily. There are a few things probably, but not everything is set in stone. So it's kind of a working process to see what the reaction is from the audience.
Yeah, one of the requirements for a medal event, and this applies to all medal events from existing and new sports, is that you have to check the boxes for many things, including relevancy. Relevancy is what people watch and what people do. And clearly obstacle racing in its various formats and forms and sports is relevant because if you look at the Ninja Warrior end of it, Ninja side, billion viewers in broadcasting in 160 countries, a lot of people. Look at obstacle course racing. Thousands of events around the world with millions of people doing them. So there's some very obvious things that many sports would love to have that. Now, when we talk sports, of course, we've got to be clear on what sports are. And I think we've had this conversation, but it bears repeating because people have a very, very limited understanding of the structure of sport and why it matters. Now, if your favorite thing in obstacle racing is a Spartan beast, it's pretty gritty, a lot of running, some heavy weights, right? So that style of obstacle race, if that's what you like and you say that's my sport, great, that's your sport. It is a format of a discipline of a sport, basically. And that is very much like athletics. If you, Usain Bolt, run 100 meters, you are in a family of sports that includes jumps, throws, hurdles, marathon running, mountain running, sky running, trail running. There's all these other bits and pieces that go with athletics. But Usain Bolt's probably not going to run a marathon at altitude on trail. That's just unlikely to happen. But it doesn't make it irrelevant. Every part of that sport has relevancy to the people who like to do it and want to do it and watch it and follow it, and all the supporters and fans and spectators and families and the community around those sports is completely relevant to them. So this is why some people might say, well, I do this one, so I do this version of it, so this is the relevant one. Well, it's relevant to you, but if you're the Spartan Beast person, it doesn't make Isaiah Thomas, the Ninja Warrior star, irrelevant. He's just as relevant in his space. And if you look at objective criteria, maybe more so. Because if he does a run of our OCR 100, because he now has a world record, he went to OCR because he's good at that stuff too. His post has 1.7 million views. How many other athletes get a post in obstacle where they get those kind of numbers? So for him, for us, it's very relevant.
It's interesting talking about the different distances. For a long time in OCR, the conversation was kind of, well, the longer the race is or the harder it is, the better it is. Like, oh man, too many people are finishing. That wasn't a real championship, or the times were too fast. That race wasn't hard enough. And I think that just kind of is, I get where it comes from. There's a little bit of ego. Like when you finish a race that was really hard, you're proud of it. But I don't think it necessarily matters when we're talking about the sport or sports as a whole.
That's a good point, Will, because hard depends on what you mean by hard. Is longer harder? Yeah, can be. Is heavier harder? That can be harder too. But you know what's also hard? Breaking 10 seconds for the 100. Like, try doing that. Good luck.
Yeah. So what is so Los Angeles, 2028, 4 years from now, pentathlon, including obstacle, is part of the Olympic schedule. what does the next 4 years look like for obstacle? What can we expect from maybe qualifying process or races, kind of benchmarks from here to there? What does the next 4 years look like for us in obstacle racing?
We'll continue to do what we're doing, obviously, in supporting the communities that we have within the various obstacle sports and disciplines. They're looking at the context of Olympic programming, so Los Angeles 2028 specifically, and the obstacle discipline, the pentathlon obstacle discipline. That discipline, we're working on to make it relevant and meet the criteria that was originally proposed, which starts to look a lot like Ninja Warrior and the OCR 100. They're both kind of close. There's a bit of confusion around that because some people don't like the format because they don't like to sprint, which is fine. Those who like to do short, fast stuff, that's great. There's a fair bit of overlap. What we saw at this year's OCR World Championships in Costa Rica was that the ninja athletes, especially the US ninja athletes, who now have a highly developed national governing body, national federation, turned out en masse and crushed it. Basically, took almost all the medals, which you would expect. Ninja Warrior in the United States is highly developed, and they are incredibly capable at obstacles. So that makes a lot of sense. So now we're starting to see this sort of overlap between those who like to go short and fast, and ninja athletes do not like to run typically. So there is some running involved in the OCR 100, but it's a different format from the Ninja 100. The Ninja 100, you don't run. You land on a platform and you take off from the same platform. So there's maybe a step involved somewhere, or maybe running up some steps. So there would be at most, the most running you will ever do in a ninja competition would be running up the warp wall, because you need enough speed to get up the wall. That's pretty much it. And even then, we sometimes format them so that you really can't run very much. You just got to have this explosive power to zip up the wall. So this convergence of the OCR 100, the ninja speed competitions, which is a format of ninja, and the pentathlon obstacle discipline is a kind of blurry line now, because we're formatting it to appeal to most people who like to do that. And what that has resulted in already is some athletes who are pretty handy multi-sport type athletes, younger athletes, because they do everything, right? They play baseball, basketball, football, whatever they're playing, probably jump in the pool. They are relatively enthusiastic at embracing the possibility of going to the Olympic Games in the pentathlon format. So for those athletes with those skills at that age group, that demographic largely has embraced the possibility if they have the Olympic dream. And it makes sense. You remember when we were kids, we ran around, we did everything. We kicked balls, we threw balls, we climbed trees, we did it all. Kids haven't changed. They still do all that stuff. And they see this and they go, yeah, I can swim and I can run, and shooting's easy. It's like a video game and that kind of stuff. So that's where it's kind of heading in the next 4 years for those who choose to do it. On the other side, we're also continuing to develop the formats with the eye to potentially having standalone medal events for obstacle events in the Olympics. There's one that I've always liked, which is a cross-country style event, like most people would actually do, and most people actually do like a 5K. If you look at the masses of people, it's like running. What do most people do? They don't run hundreds and they don't run marathons. They run 5Ks. Well, obstacle athletes are no different. If you look at the data, it's pretty clear that most people, you want to run a comfortable distance, it's going to be a 5K. It's kind of easy, right? It's just an easy distance to do. You can do it without a whole lot of training if you're fit, and if you don't have training, you can also do it. So the sweet spot appears to be about a 5K. Turns out, if you ever been on an Olympic mountain bike course, they are really good for obstacle races. And you see them every now and again. If you go to a mountain location like the Tahoe location for Spartan, the old Spartan World Champs, or any of the other mountain, and then the old mountain series, they were largely at ski resorts. And guess where Olympic mountain bike courses are? Quite often at Olympics, they're at ski resorts, because in summer, now they're everywhere. They turn out to be great for obstacle racing, and it's an existing venue in an Olympics. So you have this really convenient location that's already built with camera positions and cabling and spectators and access, and perfect for obstacle races. They're typically got climbing and descending and flats, third up, third down, third flat kind of thing. That I love that idea for a standalone event, that would satisfy, I think, most obstacle course races.
So let me make sure I just heard you right. We're planning 2028 obstacle in the Olympics will be some form of a 100-meter race. And it's still, the details are still being worked out, it sounds like.
Yeah, it takes a while.
But also, one of the things you're working on is a more traditional 5K OCR cross country, probably on a mountain. I don't have in front of me where 2028.
Mountain bike venue would be the right place in the games. Mountain bike venue, because they exist. You can't create new venues. Well, creating new venues is tough because it's money and expense and complexity and logistics, and it's way better to use existing venues, which is why you see aquatics common uses the same venues for different disciplines and events. You see the same in athletics. If you have been to an Olympics or watched them, you'll see that the athletic track typically has three things going on at once. You typically have jumps, throws, and track event and running events going on simultaneously. A single venue much better than having three separate venues.
Sure. So we might be seeing like 2032-ish, what most people, like obstacle course racers today think of as a sprint type, Spartan sprint distance type race.
Yeah, it's feasible. That would be great. I mean, for the sport, it'd be terrific. It's not impossible. There are many requirements around getting games programming. In addition to being an actual Olympic sport with an Olympic footprint, there's a timeline involved, and the campaigning for medal events on a game starts about 7 or 8 years out from a game. So right now, the sports that we're thinking about, the Olympic sports will be thinking about what can be done in 32.
Sure.
Because that's within the 8 year window.
Sure.
And but the planning happens before that, meaning the strategizing, like what could we do kind of stuff. It changes, morphs, and you're chasing a slightly moving target. But by the time as you get closer and closer to a games, when about 5 years out, pretty much confirmed the medal events for the games 5 years later. Not always. There's an Olympic charter thing which allows it up to, I think the host can propose an event for their games up to 6 months before their games. I don't think it's ever happened. But that has to be approved by the International Olympic Committee Programming Commission. So there's many things that go on. I've been working on the sprint version, like the kind of short course speed version that we have now, since 2015. As a strategy, back then it was a dream. It was sort of pie in the sky. But we actually met with the ATS team, the set shop that builds the Ninja Warrior courses, and for the global franchise. You'll see it in Las Vegas. It's happening right now. Actually, the actual show is being shot in Las Vegas at the moment. We started working with those guys almost 10 years ago, just as a concept. It's like, if this happened, would you be interested in? That was what we started with, and they were like, "Yeah, that sounds great." So today, I don't know if the viewers can see behind me, but there's audio, right? It's not.
I will the audio, yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a picture behind me, which is this year's US National Ninja course. For the casual viewer or the actual TV viewer, they'll just go, "Oh, look, American Ninja Warrior." It's built by the ATS team, which builds the sets for the courses for the TV shows. So it's indistinguishable for most people from the TV show and what we do for actual competition. Completely different things, of course, because produced entertainment on television is not pure competition.
Yeah.
Ours are pure competition. Like time matters a lot. Officiating, rules, all that kind of stuff. The TV show is not that.
Yeah. We've had that conversation before. Is Ninja Warrior, is Ninja Warrior a sport? And my answer is always, unless anyone off the street can attempt to qualify and get on, then no, they're doing a TV show. They want compelling stories, tragic, comeback over tragedy and like addiction. And like they want, it's a TV show first. And the best athlete in the world might not have a compelling story. And so he doesn't make it on the show. So, but
American Ninja Warrior is an entertainment television show. Ninja, because of the show in the US, causing people to want to get on the show, they started training, right? So then this is going back 10 years, 10 years, no longer now. It goes back quite a long way. But think of that like this. The first year when people started hearing about it, it was like a couple of hundred people would turn up to the casting call. Today, it's approaching 100,000 put their applications in. Now, those people the want to be on the show people are now in a highly developed training and competition space in the United States, where people would train, then they'd create the obstacles to train, then they'd create gyms to train, then they create competitions within the gyms, and then between the gyms, then create leagues, and then competitions in the leagues, and then between the leagues, and now we have this huge system where there are thousands of gyms and dozens of leagues and national champs and world champs, and now it's a fully fledged sport. And if you're not in that space, if you're looking from, say, the obstacle course racing space over at Ninja, and you don't belong to it, you have no idea that exists. But put it this way, there's probably 100 times more Ninja gyms than there are obstacle racing gyms.
Yeah,
they built on that.
It's very impressive. They have multiple leagues even that are,
yes,
that's impressive.
There's leagues of leagues now. I mean, the thing is so big, the system is so big that we qualify 1,000 people to the nationals in the US alone, qualify, and they go through the whole system. So it's, to get to nationals in US Ninja system is tough. Good luck.
So talking about the pentathlon disciplines, fencing, swimming, shooting, running, obstacle. It seems like it'd be easier for a current pentathlete to learn to do obstacle than for an obstacle athlete to learn. Fencing is really the one, right? Like, I feel like athletes that we know in the obstacle racing space, if they're like, man, I want to do the Olympics, they're going to have to learn to fence. That's fair. That's a fair statement, right?
Yes, you have to learn to do the things you don't do yet. But here's what actually happens. The thing that you need to be able to do to become a good pentathlete, especially as you're older, you need to be a good swimmer. Swimming is hard. If you don't have the technique and you haven't developed the skills to swim, you can't. It's very, very hard to pick up later. Fencing is actually quite easy. Fencing, you can pick up a blade, and within a day you can be getting the basic moves. And then with some training, you can get proficient at fencing, proficient enough to be competitive, but not for swimming. Swimming is hard. It's like, I guess it's a little bit for most people like running if you're not a swimmer. If you can bang out a 150, 800, you're a good runner. But good luck getting to that if you haven't been running for most of your life.
Sure.
Because you probably run 2.5, like 2 minutes 30 would be a decent 800, but a good run is going to be half a minute faster.
What about, let's say there are some OCR athletes who are young enough where 2028 is like, man, I'm going to be in my physical prime. I'm a good swimmer now. And I feel like I can learn to fence. Like, how does that OCR athlete, what are his steps to get to the Olympics in 4 years?
They will go to their pentathlon federation, whatever country they happen to be in. And then those federations will be very happy to recruit athletes into pentathlon for the development team is how it works. So in the US, it's already happened and it continues to happen. So it's an ongoing process. For any Olympian in any sport, in any discipline of any sport, it's about an 8-year process for most people to qualify for an Olympic team. That formula has changed, though, because for pentathlon, because of the new discipline. Now, because of that, it's much more accessible on a much shorter timeline because everyone's starting from zero, basically. Like there was no Olympic format that included an obstacle event. But now, because there is, everyone's on pretty much an even footing, whether you were a pentathlete or are a pentathlete and you're now learning obstacle, or if you're an obstacle athlete who can run and swim and you want to pick up fencing. The shooting, by the way, is relatively trivial. It's a skill that you can pick up very fast and it doesn't take a whole lot of training. But, if you're going to the Olympic level, you have to do everything with a lot of training.
I guess the counterpoint would be like the current pentathletes. Yeah, you know how to fence, but you got to learn how to do obstacles. You got to build that up. If you don't have that upper body strength, because they've been doing, replacing riding, there's not a lot of upper body strength required for riding. I'm guessing. I'm not a big horse guy.
That's true. There is for fencing, though.
Okay.
Yeah, fencing, wielding a fencing with
Sure.
the grip and wrist strength is actually not trivial. When people see the younger pentathletes switching to obstacle, which they love, by the way, because it's, for obvious reasons, we know why, because it's playing. They love it, they embrace it, and they train. They get good very, very quickly. They get so good, in fact, that Egypt has a very strong pentathlon federation, very well funded. They immediately, before it was even announced, they started training on obstacle stuff, and then they brought some courses. The world record for the current small pentathlon course is held by Egyptian pentathletes who beat one of our American Ninja Warriors, who was the record holder, but they got better than him, which is specificity, though, when you think about it. Like, he's not training on that actual course, but he's good enough to basically beat everyone until the Egyptians started training, and a year later they beat him.
I know when I'm talking about fencing or horse, I know there's pentathletes listening right now that are shouting at their headphones like that. Pentathletes, I apologize. I know what I don't know. Okay. I thank you for humoring me here, current pentathletes.
I was in Paris and watched the final games with the final pentathlon with a question in it. And it was a little sad. What a lot of people don't know about me and my wife is my wife's an equestrian. She was a scholarship athlete at university. We own a horse farm. I like horses a lot. We're kind of horse people, and seeing it go away it's kind of sad. It was beautiful, by the way. It was glorious in the Palace of Versailles grounds, watching the pentathlon and the horse riding. But it was a little sad. I think there were many people in the crowd who didn't even know what pentathlon was. Just they knew it was the last thing, and it was a little sad. And it's kind of disappointing, especially if you're in a question. It's like, oh shit, I totally get it.
Is there some little mourning or little sadness from the community that it's a pretty big change for their sport?
Yeah, for some, I think it's unpalatable. That's totally understandable. And if you came from an equestrian background and that's your sport, it's very difficult to take. I imagine it'd be very upsetting. I totally get it. But for the most part, what pentathlon is seeing is that about 80%, actually, they did a survey after Paris. Before Paris, the athletes going to Paris were mostly saying, yeah, I think I'll probably drop pentathlon now. After Paris, 80% said they'd keep it. So they'll just switch.
Why is that, do you think?
I don't know. You have to ask the pentathletes. I mean, if I were a pentathlete, and I was young enough, I'd be going, I still want to go to the games. I'm just going to pick that up now. It fits the criteria for being, not the criteria, it fits the basic philosophy of being a pentathlete. Pentathlon was created to be the complete athlete. And if you truly believe you're a pentathlete, you should be able to adapt to anything. If there'd been cycling instead of a question, guess what you do? You learn how to ride a bike. You're pretty straightforward.
Sure. What else should people know about the Olympics 2028 qualifying process or anything?
I encourage anyone who wants to compete, if you're young enough, the window is small. It's 4 years, but it's enough. Like if you have basic skills already and the desire and the commitment to be an Olympian, that door is open and is wide open right now, because you can, at the right age and skill set, get in and do it well. It would be, so many athletes, the athletes that we see that can already do this stuff are ours, that obviously the obstacle athletes, provided they have proficient swimming. Clearly they can run, mostly, unless you're ninjas who don't really like to run very much. Fencing, you can pick up quickly. Shooting, very easy to do. We already include laser shooting and have since 2016. We've included laser shooting in various obstacle races since 2016 at federation level. So now at the federation level, I think every country is familiar with it for the federation athletes. Those who are not members of a federation should join their national federation and then start to train that kind of stuff. And increasingly, the access to the shorter courses like the 100 meters that we do, or in Ninja, the speed courses that we do, that would be a good start for an obstacle athlete. The Brisbane 32 is an interesting discussion. Brisbane and the Gold Coast, which is the area where the Olympics are in 2032, have expressed interest in doing world-level events for obstacle standalone events. There's a very good reason for it. Ninja Warrior in Australia is huge. The Australian Ninja Warrior is a really big deal. Australia beat the world in the Australia versus the world. So there's these various TV shows. These athletes are good, by the way. They're not just show athletes. These are competitive athletes. It's like the USA versus the world. They pick out the really good athletes. So until a year ago, the only country that had ever won was the United States. That Australia won. And the best athletes, actually the world record holder, the current world record holder, which will change, is an Australian woman for the ninja speed world record. That course won't happen again, so it's going to change. But the Australians are strong. The show was relevant and popular, and Australia would like that. So that's that possible pathway into a games is when the host city requests something, and that could be a request.
That would be exciting. Australia has some big traditional obstacle racing athletes. Deanna Blegg, one of the world's toughest mutters. She invented these Blegg mitts that are popular for cold races. Lachlan Danzy, another Australian. Australia is great.
CrossFit people crossing over, which they do too. So you see, Aussie's pretty proficient in that space. And the line gets a little blurred. What we're aiming to do in the formatting is round out the disciplines so it's more balanced. Like it doesn't particularly favor a grip athlete or a strength athlete so we want this kind of balance thing. It's hard to strike that balance because some athlete will end up dominating, some style of athlete will end up dominating. In the pentathlon format, though, it's individual events aside, the nature of that sport with the 5 disciplines tends to balance it anyway.
Sure.
So you're going to have athletes who can do all these other things.
Right.
And they are incredibly capable. If you ever watch a pentathlete, people go, oh, it's kind of some people have the impression it's a sport for people who can't do the other sports really well. Not true. You see all sorts of individual medalists come into the sport. In fact, Sheila Taumarina, who is an Olympic medalist in swimming for the US, then became a triathlete in the Olympics, then became a pentathlete in the Olympics. So that's you'll see that kind of trajectory sometimes from Olympians as they make this kind of morph across sports, especially multi-sports, where you have this wide range of capabilities.
Great. That's great. Hey, let's shift gears. You mentioned Costa Rica, had the World Championships there recently. How did that go?
Oh, the racing was great. The venues were incredible. Athletes loved the races. There was typical challenges. The beauty, it's kind of a double-edged sword. The reason you go to somewhere like Costa Rica is it's super laid back and it's friendly and it's beautiful and the food is great and the race was a lot like that. It was beautiful and relaxed and laid back and it was great, but that's also a double-edged sword for producing events because it's kind of laid back and that's not what we like. It was terrific. Yeah, it was wonderful. We faced challenges. We always do. The local organizing committee, which is the national governing body of the National Federation and some event production companies and the Ministry for Sport and Tourism. So they're the actual hosts. This is always how we do it. They were amazing, great to work with on many levels. We learned a lot about working within the Latin culture. And it's just like you'd expect. It was a lovely holiday. Actually, it wasn't a lovely holiday. It was terrific. So they'll continue to produce a lot of events. They will do a World Cup next year. During Costa Rica, the Latin countries came together. Now there's a Latin American Confederation. It's called OCR LATAM. Actually, it was called OCR LATAM. Now it's got a formal name. But so there's now a lot of countries came on board. Now got something like 15 came together in the Americas. So that's now a confederation. Next year, we move to Sweden. Nordic countries, they also have a confederation because of Nordic countries. Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland. That race will be, we anticipate it'll be really step the game up again. The event production company is Tough Viking. They've been around for a really long time. They are arguably one of the best, if not the best, event production company and obstacle in the world. They produce an event in Stockholm with 18,000 people. They have great obstacles. They are very precise. We were there for the venue confirmation this year, and it was impressive. Think of some of the best events you've ever been to with beautiful festival areas and and seamless production. Very solid obstacles, great variety. And it's in a beautiful park. You can walk to it from the city. I mean, it's in the city. So it's a great location. The event company is fantastic. The host national federation is the Athletics Federation, so very capable, very big. They just held the I think it was World Masters Championships for athletics this year, same venues. So athletic track, which was renovated for the World Champs for athletics this year. And we use that in the park with the athletic stadium. That's for the 100 and other stuff. So it'll be an amazing event. Easy to get to from the eastern seaboard of the United States, obviously very easy from Europe, and great reputation. So we anticipate an amazing event next year in Sweden.
Looking for the dates. I don't have it in front of me. August of this year was Costa Rica. Is it about the same time next year?
September. We pushed it a little bit later. Yeah, a little bit later. There's the possibility, it's Sweden, so there's the possibility of weather. Man, there's always weather everywhere. In Costa Rica, of course, it's tropical, so you get kind of afternoon rainstorms. In Sweden, we were there this year in spring. There was a little bit of snow, a little bit of sun. It was great. A little bit of everything, which is kind of fun. And little muddy in places, lots of water to cross, some steep hills. There's an old ski slope, an old ski jump, actually, that is part of the course, which is terrific. Not a big one like today, but a real ski jump. Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's in a beautiful tree park with great trails, technical footing. They tend to do a lot of weight. If anyone does a tough hiking, which they should, the standard tough hikings have an 80-kilogram slam ball lift. And if you've never lifted a slam ball, it's not like an Atlas stone. It is very different. An 80-kilo Atlas stone, it's reasonably okay for most people with technique. Slam ball, good luck.
Those are the ones they throw over their shoulder?
Yeah, they're leather,
Sure.
full of little lead pellets. And 80 kilograms for Americans is, it's very heavy, 236 pounds, something like that. Look it up.
About 180 pounds.
Oh, 180 pounds. Okay, sorry about that.
I would have been lost. I have no idea.
180. So it's heavy. We probably won't do that. We might. This doesn't really tell from what it's going to be. It's doable. You just got to figure it out.
It's there's some value to having some local flavor. Like we have a Costa Rica themed this and a Sweden themed that. Like, yeah, remember that last year in Sweden they did, and now this year in whatever the next. Yeah, I can see that.
We do that. We do it with grips actually. So this year, grips in Costa Rica, we had coffee beans. I think it was coffee beans, corn cobs, like these grips that we create for the event itself, which makes it fun because it's local. You're going to have local stuff. So those discussions are always ongoing with the host.
There was a little controversy in Costa Rica over one of the women's races. There was some discussion over you remember what this was with the finishers, the top three finishers? How did that all shake out?
There was an incident within the courses. It was to do with staffing, actually. We were understaffed for officials. This is common, by the way. We request all national federations provide officials because the events have to be staffed. In our officials program, we train them, certify them, and then get them on course to train them more. We did not have enough certified trained officials to keep some obstacles safe. This is about safety. So when we're understaffed, we just say, okay, we won't use that obstacle. We'll just, that obstacle's out. We can't let people do that. There was a set of walls quite tall. And we said, this obstacle is out for this event because we can't staff it. And we're not confident it's going to be safe just to run over it by yourself. Or did I have someone there in case there's an incident? The challenge was at the start of the race, at the start of each start, the announcers and officials were telling everyone, okay, if there's no staff there, don't do it. For the most part, everyone followed directions. But keep in mind, there's like 50 languages. And not everyone is proficient in English and Spanish. So when you mix that into it at the start, communicating that stuff into the event is hard to get it across. So what happened was some athletes did the wall, some athletes didn't. In the women's race, they looked at each other at the finish and went, not comfortable with the finish because Alyssa did the walls and we didn't do the walls, and we're not really comfortable with that. So we said, well, sometimes in these situations, if you choose, you can decide to tie or share or do something with the finish so that no one loses. But you have to make that decision. We can't make that for you. You have to agree on that. Go away and make a decision. And at the time, they said, oh, sure, that sounds great. Now, this was, but then overnight, there was a little bit of thought went on, understandably, and people changed their minds. Saying, yeah, not so if that's right either. And that's where it happened. That was the controversy. That was what caused it. It was the uncertainty about, it was a fairness thing, and the athletes, to their credit, were doing exactly what they should have. And they looked at each other and went, not really sure if that was fair or not, because we don't really know who would have won that. And in the end, they just went to, let's go across the line. We actually did a little bit of due diligence and looked at some video and said, well, there was a protest and appeal process that we go through. And when you weigh up the evidence, it actually wouldn't have made any difference anyway. So nothing actually happened. So the original standing stayed because there was no difference that was appreciable or could even be validated. Like the time gap, basically, there's no way you could make it up.
Oh, sure.
It was impossible.
So going forward, though, like if that's more officials can resolve that, so we don't want anything like that to happen again.
Yeah, it's safety and fairness. They're the primary criteria. Number one is safety. Obviously, we always go with safety first, and then if for whatever reason something can't be staffed, which is we don't like it, but we're also relying on everyone's a volunteer. And the challenge of being an official is you're a volunteer that gets yelled at. So you volunteer your time, probably some money, effort and knowledge and experience to be yelled at. And that's really uncomfortable. So people come in and they become officials and then they hate getting yelled at. And they understand it's not them, that it's the passion of the event. But when there's medals at stake, maybe even money at stake, people get passionate and they can be pretty, especially experienced and well-known athletes can get very assertive. And to be a good official, you need to be a mature adult that can be just as assertive back and cross your arms and say no.
I hope our community as OCR, like you go to a baseball game or you go to a basketball game, like, yeah, those refs, that's their job. It's their career. And they should be able to take a little bit of, hey, ref, you're missing a great game. But at an obstacle course race, literally 99% of the people out there are either paying to be there or they're volunteers. So I hope we treat them all with kindness and patience.
I hope so. We also aim for flow of the event. It's another criteria. It's sort of equally weighted, to be honest. You have to be safe, has to be fair, but it has to flow well too. So part of the official's job is to ensure flow of the event, and that's managing athletes through a course, or if there's something going on in the obstacle itself. So these are other things that until you're official, you just don't know. And we encourage everyone to be an official. Makes you a better racer, by the way. If you're an athlete and you become an official, you get to be a much better athlete because you figure out, at that point, why the rules exist, how they're applied, and how to manage that obstacle. Because that's important. If you're a serious athlete and you truly want to perform well, it really helps to get at least the officials training and to stand there and get yelled at by some athletes. Think twice about yelling at that point. It's like, oh shit, now I know what it feels like.
So the future for World Obstacle, we talked about the Olympics already, 2028. We talked a little about Brisbane. Talked about Sweden next year. Has the World Championship event or World Championship venue for 2026 been announced yet?
We have expressions of interest through 28. We have not decided on 26. We're evaluating another event coming up. Actually, 2 more events this year that we're supporting or supervising, or a bit of both. The Spartan 100-meter World Championships in Croatia. So our team is there assisting because it is a standard international course, and we're the ones who run it. So we're going to be there assisting, working as a team with Spartan Croatia, the licensee, which is put in on the event for Spartan. So many of our athletes will be there. The invitation went out to national federations. There's also other athletes being invited as individuals. But mostly I think it will be national federation members who got the first invitation to that event. We're also got one that is being, and I think it was announced today, that registration opened for the Dubai World Obstacle Championships this year.
When's that?
That's December 5th through the 8th. We've been working on it. Well, there was initial discussions last year. We went over this spring, early this year, to check the venues, to do an initial evaluation. And it's very, very, very late to open up registration for an event in December, but it's open. There's 500,000 dirham prize money. It's about 140,000 US dollars prize money. So it's real prize money. The invitation similar to our events. So we're supervising and supporting the event. It's owned and run by Dubai, basically. The police department, the tourism council, and we there to facilitate the event, write officials, help with the formatting and everything, and run it like that. There's a bit of confusion around events like this. They go, "Oh, it's World Obstacles does everything." We're all volunteers. We have to take time off work, so we volunteer our time. We go in and do everything we can to make the events safe, fair, and flow well, and be fun, which is part of the flow well. So that's our job. We get a lot we get a lot of heat from saying World Obstacles screwed it up. So, well, we do everything we can to make it work, but quite often we have no authority to actually make a decision. So in Havar, for instance, helping Spartan, working with Spartan and the licensee, they pay the money, they own the venues, they run the event, it's their name, they make the decisions. We have responsibility with very little authority, and this is typical because the host pays for everything in all these events, every event, everywhere, whether it's Costa Rica or Sweden, or it's always paid and owned really by the host. We sanction, approve, support, provide knowledge, experience, staffing, et cetera, et cetera. Same in Dubai. We are supporting, we are supervising. Our team goes in, same team all the time. Our team is very, very consistent. You'll see the same people doing the same jobs in all events, from Italy back in 22 through to today. Every event since, that's been pretty much the same team. For Euro champs, world champs, all these other things. So we do that. Dubai is going to be, we think it's going to be amazing. The hosts are great. The venues are fantastic. This year, we encourage people to go. I know there's a bunch of people will be out at the Spartan World Champs in Abu Dhabi, literally 60 miles away the weekend before. So they will have to stay and do the event. You'll see a lot more information coming. So that's awesome. Are details, but there's a lot more coming. Are open.
Is the Dubai race through another partner? Like the Havar was partnered with Spartan. Is the Dubai race with another local brand, or
Dubai is it's at the initiative of the Dubai Police Department. So they and the Dubai Sports Council are the hosts.
So that Dubai
functionally the owners of the event. It's sanctioned, approved, and supported and supervised by World Obstacle team, a very, very small team of race directors and directors, officials training, race directors, course setters, course directors, competition director. Of course, we partner up with the local organizing committee. We call them the LOC, kind of crazy language, but local organizing committee, which is all the people who pay for it, fund it, manage it, have the authority to do all that stuff, the venues, the infrastructure, the schools, all that stuff. So it's a real world champs. It's a good one. We're going to build it. It's a long game on this one. It's been a discussion for a while, but this is a long game. We are building it as a standalone event, kind of like Ironman World Championships in Kona or Wimbledon. We're building it as kind of a standalone event. The distances and format, the distances are a little different from the standard federation ones, which are 100 meters, short course and long course and team race. This one is international distance, which we started in 2019 at Southeast Asia Games. That's an IOC Olympic Games. It's a 5K. So it's that we're talking about the sweet spot. There's many reasons for that. One, fits Olympic venues. Most people do that distance. Anyone can show up and do it. It's also a great distance. It's in between like a short course and a long course. So So it's kind of this middle space that you're never quite sure who's going to win that. There's a few invited paid athletes coming, like the best from around the world. They are basically the top individual men and women in the various distances will be there because they need to, we need to see the best. And you need a benchmark. You need a bar. It's like,
Sure.
Do you think you're really good? Well, guess what? Jesse De Heer, who has won world champs and European champs a few times, he's going to be there. Try beat him.
They have been investing a lot into obstacle the last 3 or 4 years.
It's a very healthy competitive sport environment in the Emirates because the princes of the states, Dubai is one of the big ones, and Abu Dhabi is one of the big ones. The princes, I think they're all related. They have this healthy sport competition, and sport's a big deal there. Like the chief, the police chief, the commander is a cyclist, and the prince has his amazing training facility of his own. I mean, it's this kind of crazy sport place. If you haven't been out to the Emirates to do some sort of sport, I strongly encourage it. You've got so much stuff to do there. You can go skiing. I'm not kidding you. You can go skiing on snow.
Those are those indoor, like those super malls with the indoor ski hills and the yes.
You want to do something? They've got incredible outdoor cycling. I mean, the place is astonishing. It's people think, oh, it's a desert and it's hot. So yeah, but they have a ton of sport out there, tons of sport. The police host the Ramadan Games. I don't remember how many sports, 20 maybe. It's cycling and football and lots of sports, swimming. It looks like it's a little games. It's like a little Olympic game, but Ramadan Games. So it's around Ramadan, obviously for those who do Ramadan. But it's we were out there during Ramadan Games, looking at the venues and their capabilities, and it's astonishing. Dubai Police as well staff. They have 10,000 staff. So we should not be lacking in staff for the events.
Well, awesome, Ian. Dubai Games, Sweden. What else is? What about some non-World Championship events? What else is on the calendar?
Non-World Championship events. Our Asia Champs out in Malaysia again. European Champs in Portugal next year, June, in the National Stadium, I believe, in Lisbon. Beautiful location. 27 in Euro Champs will be in Spain. That location has not been announced. We have Ninja World Champs coming up in April next year. That's produced by USA Ninja Association. They are incredibly capable. They've produced the 2 best ninja competitions, 2 of the best in the world. Philippines, of course, does amazing events, but on the other hemisphere, the best organization is USA Ninja Association. They got big really, really fast, came together in a couple of months to put on the Ninja World Cup last year. Now they're a fully functional, highly functional national governing body. Did their national champs this year, which was terrific. And they're the organization producing the operations and all the infrastructure for the world champs in Birmingham, Alabama. The course builder is the ATS team, the TV show builder, as they always are. And in Birmingham was the host of the World Games in 2022, so they know how to host games, and they built their city for games. So clearly have everything you can possibly need for World Championships. And Birmingham, Alabama is amazing, by the way. I hadn't been there for 30 years, and I went back this year. I was blown away. It's a beautiful city, and it's been cleaned up from, it used to be kind of somewhat dilapidated steel town to now there's these gorgeous parks with incredible facilities and the best stadium I have ever seen. This new stadium is astonishing. They've got arenas and outdoor spaces, and it's fantastic.
Love it. Love it. Ian, what else should we tell the people?
I've talked way too much already.
How can people find out more about World Obstacle?
Go to our website. Actually, contact your national governing body. That's the best way to do it. And go to your national governing body. Depends on the country. They're between 1 and 4 national governing bodies, depending on the sports. In the United States, if you're here, then it'll be USA Ninja Association. USA Ninja is actually what it's called. USA Obstacle Course Racing. For those who do adventures, USA Adventure Racing Association. Here's some more information. Early on, in our founding documents in 2016, we included what back then was civilian military combine. Remember that competition in New York?
Sure.
Yeah, it was great. It was a super fun competition. Like,
Yeah.
it's basically what High Rocks and Deca do now, but they did it first, and they did it really well. Back then, we said this should be an amazing sport. We'll just include it as one of the obstacle disciplines because it's not the same as OCR or Ninja. So back then we went, hey, we should do that. But then it sort of went away. Like civilian military combine stopped, but then the guys out of Hamburg popped up with High Rocks. I actually met with them. They were triathletes who worked at Ironman, and I knew them coincidentally. And I was in Hamburg, and they said, "Hey, come meet." So I met with Moritz Furzi, is his name. Met with Moritz, and he had this concept. And I went, "Oh, that sounds great." And so back then we had an idea to align as a sport, create a sport. Now he's done it. I mean, look what High Rocks is now. He did it. The guy's an amazing event producer. Cut his teeth at Ironman, and so he gets every part of the sport landscape: entertainment, production, athlete experience, the true pure competition that suits certain athletes. And so that has now become a real thing. Now it's generally called fitness racing.
Hybrid racing.
So there's a little bit hybrid racing. Yeah, that's a good name. Fitness racing, hybrid racing. Combine doesn't make sense anymore. It's kind of passé. It has a little bit of a footprint into the CrossFit world. So you see CrossFit does similar-ish kind of things, because they sometimes include running and sometimes swimming to the detriment of some athletes if they don't have good lifeguards. So the space now is robust. Clearly with Deca Fit also in the space, and then other events that have popped up in various countries. It's truly become the thing that we thought it might become back in 2016. So that is still a thing for us. We're looking at and have had discussions with various producers to see if there's an interest in federating it to some extent. You can do it anyway. Federations do whatever they want. They can produce any events they want. But because it's now become a sport in a functional sense, not a formal sense, which is other things, but in a functional sense, that's great. It's an amazing addition to the wider obstacle space. There's another one. If you've seen World Chase Tag, the show World Chase Tag,
I have.
Well, guess who wins those events?
Parkour, athletes, I'd guess.
Ninja and parkour athletes.
Okay.
But good ninja athletes also typically do parkour. There's a big overlap, by the way, between parkour and ninja. And there's becoming a big overlap between ninja and sprint in OCR. So there's this big Venn diagram where all these circles are starting to merge and create bigger overlaps. And right in the middle, you've got this kind of weird space. But chase tag is in there too. Now, tag is a really interesting sport. It's thousands of years old, by the way. And depending where you are in the world and what culture you're from, whether it's like Central Asian, Indian, or Middle Eastern, or European, or American, the tag's a thing. And has been a formalized sport in many regions for centuries. In the modern context, a little bit like American Ninja Warrior, in the modern context, it starts to get real traction when a TV show pops up. So the guys out of Britain who created World Chase Tag, which has now become a sport as well, because even our own national federations put on events. They create their own quads and they have competitions. It's just like American Ninja Warrior because they want to get on the show. Right? But the show, here's the thing about Chase Tag, World Chase Tag version, it does have good rules and it does have precise builds and it does have the basic sport infrastructure already. So they've already created the show as a true, pure competition show. It's not based on a casting call with a cowboy and a cheerleader and a Playboy bunny. Right? It's different. They're not choosing the athlete. You have to compete. They truly compete in an absolute pure sport context.
Sure.
So what they've done, the Devereaux out of Britain is who they are, the brothers. We've had a discussion with them about, well, let's help each other. And this is like we did with American Ninja Warrior. What if we did this? It's the what if question. What if we can create a bigger thing by collaborating and making, formalizing a piece of it? They keep all the IP rights and own all the World Chase Tag stuff. And then we build a sport, which is already starting to happen in Asia and New Zealand and Europe and a few other places. You start to see actual chase tag competitions because that's what people do when they want to compete and get on something.
So what I just heard you say, and tell me if I'm wrong, we have obstacle as kind of one vertical, and then would hybrid and chase tag be their own separate, or are we talking about those two kind of falling under obstacle?
Well, I think nothing really falls under obstacle because it's more of a family of sports. It's like athletics, where it's a family of sports. And the family of sports, although if you look at them in isolation, they're quite disparate. No one would claim that trail running is the same as shot put. They're in the same family. They're not really under anything. They just come together with common glue, is how we see it in sport. They're just glued together with a common thing. So it's like the same discussion with the potential merger of pentathlon and obstacle. It's just bringing more stuff together for mutual gain. And it truly works well. If you look at canoe, athletics, aquatics, cycling, it's routine. Look at all the stuff that's come into cycling over the past 40 years. BMX, mountain biking, trial, like all this stuff has become Olympic through cycling by just stuff joining together. Same in canoe, even bigger in canoe. I mean, canoeists, when I started in canoe, there was like 3 or 4 disciplines, and now there's 12, and most of them are on the Olympic program. I was doing things like canoe polo and ocean kayaking, which is in the LA 28. Ocean racing is in LA 28. I used to compete at that in the 80s. I had no idea it would possibly become an Olympic thing. I would have liked it back in the 80s, but 40 years later, and there it is. And this is that, like, bring lots of stuff together in one big happy family. That's always the goal, right? So people talk about that. We didn't address that, the potential merger. I would even go as far to say as planned, but the idea of bringing pentathlon and obstacle sports, the various sports, together under the Olympic umbrella means that the obstacle sports get the fastest way in to becoming part of the Olympic program, just like ocean racing did in canoe, or mountain biking and cycling. And same thing. So that's the concept. The idea is win-win. If it's a win-win and everyone's happy, off we go to the races, literally, or off we go to the Olympics. If it turns out that it's not a happy marriage or engagement, we go, well, we tried. And you can always annul a marriage. It's not a good idea, by the way. Once you become part of the Olympic family, it's kind of a good idea not to divorce.
I've thought, hybrid racing is relatively new, 3 years, I guess. Sorry. I've always thought of it as a kind of cousin to OCR. There's a lot of crossover. Spartan's obviously heavily involved in both. A lot of athletes can go back and forth. Chase tag, World Chase Tag, I've never really, that's almost another step. That's like the other, like at Thanksgiving, they're sitting at the other table kind of thing.
It looks pretty different. It does. It's very different, very, very different from OCR. But then so is shot put from marathon running. They're just cousins that live in a big family. So anything with an obstacle you can jump over, under, or through, or whatever, that's still an obstacle. And that's where chase tag. And that's why the ninja athletes are so good at it. And they're doing pure obstacle competitions. But when they pick up tag, it's the same skills, very similar skills. Parkour athletes, same. But that's why parkour athletes cross over to ninja and vice versa. Because there's this common set of skills. You need to have good grip, you need to be able to swing on bar, jump, climb, do all that sort of stuff. So in a family of stuff that is somewhat related, yeah. Another one is calisthenics. They are in the process of joining.
Calisthenics as a sport?
Yes, calisthenics is quite a big sport. Calisthenics is the foundation for almost all physical training. It's been around for thousands of years. Calisthenics, most people don't realize, or many people outside calisthenics don't realize it's an actual sport. You see it on Muscle Beach, right? You see it on TikTok and stuff. People do crazy stuff on bars. That's
sure.
Calisthenics.
Okay.
Again, big overlap. You see calisthenics athletes doing ninja and parkour and chase tag. So there's this space on that end of the spectrum of obstacle stuff with obstacle stuff.
Sure.
There's a lot of overlap over there. When you follow the spectrum over toward the really long things, it's just like runners, like ultra runner is probably not going to do 100 meters or shot put or high jump. Probably not. I mean, maybe, but probably not.
Well, Ian, awesome. It's good talk. Any last thoughts before we wrap up?
I guess one thing is important for listeners to understand what sport is and does. There's a lot of misinformation being promoted about what sport is and does. Sport doesn't own anything. Sport is purely a representative system of governance to provide benefits for the communities in the sports. And so the representative governance, it has an actual structure. That's kind of the Olympic sports structure, non-governmental, non-profit, volunteer-based, people who have knowledge and experience and just want to make better sport. That's it. And the things that we're trying to do is provide safer, fairer, more accessible, more fun events to the most people possible in the most spaces. That's it. That's all we do. Now, there's language about they own this or they do that, or it's not actually true. And if you doubt it, I strongly encourage you to join a national governing body, national federation, get involved and do something great for the sport. It's all volunteers. We get abused for, no good deed goes unpunished. So that's how we live. We understand that. We'll continue doing what we need to do to benefit the sport and get abused for it, and that's fine.
Ian Adamson is the president of World Obstacle. You can find more about World Obstacle, worldobstacle.org. Find your local federation there. You can follow them on Instagram at World Obstacle. Ian Adamson, thanks much.
Thank you, Will.
Special thanks to Ian Adamson for appearing in this episode. Well done, Ian. Come back anytime. Ian has a golden ticket, so he can come on the show whenever he wants. People who have golden tickets are world champions, national program directors, race brand CEOs, 90s folk pop singer songwriter Jewel, and presidents of international governing bodies. We just put the last one on the list this episode. Congratulations. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Shoot an email, will@theocrreport.com. Be sure to listen tomorrow to Fran and Carlo Get OCR Adjacent. And I will talk with you soon. Go spend time with someone you love.